Good afternoon. Welcome to our July webinar for the Network Plus for Heating and Cooling. My name is Jackie Bell. I'm the Network Manager for the network, and I'm here because the academics are all on holiday, so you've got me to chair this event, which I'm delighted to do. This event is organised through the EPSRC Network Plus for the decarbonisation of heating and cooling, and is part of a series looking at the different challenges of decarbonising our heating and cooling sectors and behaviours. This month, we are delighted to welcome speakers from Leeds Beckett and Lincoln Universities for leading research into user perceptions of hydrogen for heat and the use of phase change materials for thermal energy storage. We are very grateful to both of our presenters for providing their time today. So I'll move on to our first speaker, and we're delighted to welcome Professor Fiona Fylan, who is the Head of Sustainable Behaviour at Leeds Beckett University, who will present some of her recent research in user perceptions of hydrogen for domestic heating. Fiona leads the Sustainable Behaviour team within the Leeds Sustainability Institute. She is a health psychologist who applies behavioural sciences to better understand behaviour and to develop and evaluate interventions to change behaviour. She works in areas such as energy use, transport choices, road user behaviour and healthcare provision, exploring a wide range of behaviours that encourage healthy people and places. So Fiona, if you're able to share your screen, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So despite that wide range of projects I work on, it's all about understanding behaviour and understanding how you might go about changing it. So this particular project was part of the H21 series of research projects. And it's not so much trying to change behaviour, but this is right at the start of the process where we're trying to understand how people might behave. And how we're doing that is trying to explore people's perceptions and what they would want to know about a potential domestic hydrogen supply. So the questions we're asking is, how would the public respond to a hydrogen conversion? What questions do they have? What concerns might they have? And what information will help them make an informed choice about their energy supply in the future, should a hydrogen conversion go ahead? Why is this important? Well, what we're aiming for is informed customers who are in a position where they can make good personal choices about their energy supply. We want them to be active partners in a safe transition, so not something that we're imposing changes on. So we want them to be informed, they can make the best choice for them. What we don't want is people who are concerned unnecessarily. They have misperceptions about hydrogen, because that could mean they make poor choices for them and for their family about their future energy supply. They might disengage completely. They might try and to get active to prevent a hydrogen transition in their area, which could lead to loss of hydrogen as an option. But also, we don't want people who have this unwarranted enthusiasm about hydrogen supply, because again, they might not be asking important questions to help them decide what's the best energy supply for them and their family. It could lead to complacency. It could mean that there's increased risks in a transition. And of course, if a hydrogen domestic supply doesn't deliver what they want, it could lead to a loss of trust. So what did we do? 3 stages to the project. We started off with some discovery interviews just to find out how to even talk to people about hydrogen. We then did a market tier definition study in which we're looking at what are the different groups or categories of people and how they might respond. And then we ran a series of deliberative workshops where we're bringing members of the public and hydrogen experts together to get them to co-design some information about a potential transition. So let's look at the discovery interviews to begin with. So just 12 semi-structured interviews, people in different locations. We had a quota to make sure that we include different genders, ages, home ownership, so renters and owners, people with children and those without. And what we're trying to do is to just understand, how do you even ask people about hydrogen? So what we found is that people had very low awareness of or even interest in where their energy comes from. It's just a case of, what are you even talking about? It's just the gas, isn't it? You turn on the gas and it comes on, and you cook with it, or you heat water with it. That's it. Where people had concerns, it tended to be about potential damage to the environment rather than safety within their own home. But what really got people's imagination was this idea of, when you burn hydrogen, it only produces heat and water. So they love that idea about it. But the barriers are any potential price increase, and of course the potential need to replace all their appliances, and not given enough notice about this change as well. So that enabled us to go ahead and run a tier definition study. So we did an online survey, and what we're trying to do is understand the reactions that people have to a potential hydrogen conversion, and understand who are these groups who might react in different ways. What might we be able to find out about them? So what we're doing is trying to define people who would lie on different points on a hydrogen acceptance scale. From, on the one hand, they would just outright reject it, to, on the other hand, they would embrace it. So we're looking at over 1,000 respondents across the UK. And so we're looking at geographic and gender differences as well. So let me talk to you about identifying the tiers to begin with. So we group people into these different categories based on their answer to 2 questions. So first of all, a question about a potential gas change. And so we're asking them, how do they feel about this? And they could answer from they're very concerned through to the very positive. And then, how would you feel about using hydrogen to run your heating and cooking? And they could say that they were strongly against or strongly in favour. Now, the survey also included a whole host of questions looking at attitudes to the environment more broadly, people's behaviours around becoming more sustainable. So we're able to use this classification system to understand a little bit about people's beliefs, people's current behaviours. So from this broad set of responses, how people are responding to these 2 different questions about reaction to a change in gas for environmental reasons, and that change being to hydrogen, we grouped them into 5 different groups. So group 1 are in favour of hydrogen, group 5 are strongly against it. So there are 2 extreme groups, but most people are in the middle. They're not sure how they feel. So we defined 3 more groups. Group 2, so I'll tell you more about these groups in a second. But the thing to take away from this is we've got the 2 extremes, people who are very supportive, people who are very against hydrogen, most people not sure about it at all. So let's have a look at these 5 different groups. So the acceptors are very positive about a change of their gas supply, in favour of using hydrogen. They believe that climate change is a significant challenge, that we need to address it. They're confident they understand the issues. Now, they see hydrogen as an opportunity for future economic benefits. Group 2, on the other hand, we're calling them the cautious. They are positive about a change to their gas supply, but they're unsure about this being hydrogen. They are motivated by the environmental benefits of hydrogen, but they have less confidence about their own knowledge. Group 3, they really are the disinterested ones. They do believe that they need to take action to tackle climate change, but they don't understand the issues enough to have an opinion about it. Group 4, we've called uncomments. This is quite a small grouping. It's only 10% of our survey population. They're concerned about a change to their gas supply, and they are unsure about that gas being hydrogen. They do accept climate change, but they're unconvinced that hydrogen transition is a good response to the climate change challenges. And finally, our rejectors. So they're rejecting hydrogen. They're sceptical about climate change and the motivations for making changes. So they're super against this idea of any change at all, and particularly hydrogen. So we are particularly interested then for the next stages of our research of working with these groups 2, 3 and 4 who fall in the middle. So they're the bulk of the population who don't have strong views about hydrogen already. So they're just not sure about it. So these groups we took further for the research into our deliberative workshops. Now, deliberative workshops, they're an opportunity for people to learn about an issue, really have time to consider their responses to the information that they're given. And typically we will run them alongside experts within the field as well. So there can be a real exchange of information, better understanding of each other's views. And our workshops typically lead to a co-designed output as well. In this case, information about a potential hydrogen transition. So we ran paired groups of workshops in 3 different locations. So paired as in people came along to a first workshop with experts in which it was exploring the issues and information about a hydrogen transition. We really tried to understand their views. We wanted to find out what questions and concerns they had, and they identified jargon that our experts are using. And they are co-producing a set of answers to those questions. Then the task was to go away and interview a friend or a family member in which they are talking about what they found out at the first workshop, and letting their friend or family member ask any questions that they had. So they were to record that conversation and send that in to us, and we were able to analyse that as well. So 2 weeks after the first workshop, they came back together again to talk about their experience of the interview, to explore how their interviewee responded, and did that change anything about their perceptions of a potential domestic hydrogen conversion. Then we looked at the explanations again, and they made changes to them. So they came out with a set of co-designed explanations about what is the transition, why is it happening, and so on. So really good fun to run, actually. So I ran them in 3 different parts of the country, as I say, but remarkably consistent findings from each of them. So I'm going to play you a little film. It's a film that was produced by Northern Gas Networks, who was administering the funding for this research. And it just explains a little bit better than I can about kind of what went on at those workshops.
I didn't know as much as I know now. I didn't realise the full implications of the gas that we're using and what effect it's having. I knew a lot about climate change, but not really the relevance and the link between the two.
The H21 project aims to deliver a decarbonisation solution for heat in the UK by changing the gas we use in our homes and businesses from natural gas, which contains carbon, to hydrogen, which does not. Until now, public perceptions of hydrogen have only been guessed at by the industry. Therefore, a programme of social science research is being undertaken nationwide to better understand how the public might feel if a 100% hydrogen conversion were to go ahead.
The gas networks are interested in people's potential response if the gas that they're using currently in the home changes from natural gas, which is methane, to hydrogen. So what we're doing in these series of workshops is to focus on people who don't have a particularly strong interest in or response to the prospect of a hydrogen conversion, because they form the bulk of the population. And we want to know what would make them more interested, what would make them more concerned, what sorts of things could they accept. It's really important to understand their baseline perceptions and what interests them and what their motivators are to design the information they would need to know should a hydrogen conversion go ahead. If information is given in the wrong way, there could be a kickback in people's responses. We are not having this, we don't want it. Very true to the initial part of the research. People have not really given this any thought whatsoever. They don't know what comes out of their gas tap. Why should they know? It's not the sorts of things that you ever really think about.
I knew nothing, seriously. I'm going to go back home. I'm literally going to get a science book out and I'm going to educate myself. I would have no idea what hydrogen was until we came here.
I didn't even know that the gas that we use as methane.
So people tend to begin with just puzzlement. First of all, why are you even doing this? Why are you asking us these questions? But then when you introduce the subject and help them understand that every time that they turn on their gas central heating or turn on their gas hob, it's releasing carbon dioxide, and this is contributing towards climate change, instantly then, that's got them. They're interested, this is relevant, and it's something that they think that they can do something about.
With this issue, climate change, as long as people are educated better, they'll have an understanding, and then they'll realise that we've got to do this because it's good for the planet.
There's been massive interest, massive willingness, and really the general area they're coming from is, why hasn't this been done before? If we can do this, it should happen, and it should happen now.
The concept that we're going through here sounds like a big plan, but that will have a big impact. So I think it's something that we should consider doing sooner rather than later.
Every workshop we've had our participants and experts as well. And so the experts have been bombarded with lots of questions from people about, why is this? How does it work? What might happen? Sure, they've been asking a lot of the questions that we anticipated, such as, how safe is it? Is it going to cost me more? But they've really flagged up on the positives as well.
It's been really interesting. I wasn't sure what to expect, and the whole thing has made me more aware. I think certainly more aware of what's going on.
It's very important so there's a smooth transition, and the general public are aware this has to be done for our future.
As long as it's not going to cost too much and it is going to deliver, then I'm on board.
What I found really fascinating from that part of the research is that we didn't try at all to convince them that this was a good idea. It was about understanding their perceptions of hydrogen and a potential transition. It was definitely not get them to sell in their interviews with their friends or family members. Yet, what came back very strongly was that they were very supportive of it. So their recordings that they sent us in really helped us identify what key concepts did people recall from these workshops? How were they able to go and explain a conversion? And did the process of explaining it throw up any additional questions? And what really struck me, as I said, was the level of support that people had. Second really interesting finding is that people assumed it would be safe. They weren't even reassured. They came into the workshops assuming that if this were to go ahead, it will have been very thoroughly tested and it would be safe, or as safe as the current gas. So that wasn't a particular concern. So what we wanted to produce was a series of outputs that explained those questions that people have. And the questions that they did have is, why is this happening? Where does hydrogen come from? How much will it cost? Is it safe? What are the practicalities? And when will it happen? So why is it happening? People were very positive about a hydrogen conversion when they recognised the role of their gas central heating and the gas cooking in climate change. Where any scepticism arose, it was, why is the UK doing this? Surely we're such a small player. Surely the carbon dioxide we produce is tiny on a global scale. Why do we have to do this? Others, though, were quite enthused by the idea of the UK leading the way. And they were definitely not engaged by explanations that involved government targets. Instead, it was all a case of your personal responsibilities. Where does hydrogen come from? Now, this I was frankly astonished about as well. So our participants, based on this one session with the experts, really seemed to grasp quite complex technical information. And when we listened to the audio recordings, it was incredible how much that they had recalled. They were able to accept the uncertainty about the technology and when it will be sufficiently advanced. So that wasn't too much of a problem. But there were some questions coming back about, well, overall, what carbon savings will there be if, say, everybody's boiler gets changed? What's the embodied carbon in that? And are we really going to save anything? How much will it cost? At the time of this research, the best guess was that it would lead to a 7% increase in their bill. So people were more concerned at that point about any vulnerable members in their community and kind of assumed that 7% would be manageable. But this was before all the price increases, so that is likely to be more of a concern now. But the concern was more around having to replace appliances. Is it safe? As I said, people assumed that if this were to happen, it would be safe. What they really appreciated, though, is the safety benefit of no carbon monoxide poisoning potential. There were some questions around, okay, well, if people don't get their hobs, their boilers converted, say if they're out when it all happens, what would happen if hydrogen were put through an appliance that wasn't designed for it? And there were some questions raised about unintended consequences. So kind of what do we not know now that we might look back and regret in the future? Practicalities, people wanted to know when is this happening? Will it mean the roads need to be dug up? How do you operate the appliances? But kind of they assumed disruption would be minimal. But there was an assumption that people could choose to remain on methane. So thinking that if I stay with my existing energy supplier, they will continue supplying me methane. So that is a potential misperception that would need to be addressed. In terms of timing and certainty, they were quite impatient because this was very much presented a case of this is currently under consideration by the government and nobody knows if this is going to happen. But once they found out about the carbon dioxide release from their own domestic properties, that they wanted a decision to be made. So in summary, from the research then, most people don't know that natural gas is causing climate change. This was true when the research was done a couple of years ago, and the more recent research I've been doing does suggest this is actually still the case. Most people do accept the need for change and they do support a hydrogen transition once they know more about the issue. Safety in the home is not so much of a consideration. Unintended consequences is more of a concern. Replacing appliances does need to be addressed with information about what help might be available, especially for more vulnerable community members. And people who haven't been involved in our deliberative workshops, they would need information about why a conversion is happening and what are the practicalities. So really what it indicates is the need to start a dialogue with the public about what are the energy futures that we might be looking at and what are we going to do about it and when. So that was phase one. Currently finishing off phase two, which is to produce a resource bank that can be used to explain a transition. That includes an animation, a display that could be used, and testing the effects of the animation. So that's the public perceptions research. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Fiona. It was a really interesting talk through public perception and obviously the lack of understanding of a lot of the issues. So